And I think a lot of times, I think people communicate their needs, or they think that the purpose of communicating their needs is to get what they want, you know? And to me, I don't feel like that's the purpose of communicating my needs. I mean, that's one of the purposes of communicating my needs, but for me, it's not the primary function. The primary function for me of communicating my needs or asking for what I want is advocating for myself and always being in an ethic of I need to advocate for myself. So even if I do not get what I need, even if the answer is no, the point was not, or the primary point for me was communicating and expressing my need because it's something that I need to do. And then if I get what I need, that's just a bonus, you know? That's a bonus benefit. But the first benefit for me is standing up for myself and advocating for myself. I want to always exist in such a way to where I'm not like, you know, if the answer is no, I'm afraid I don't advocate myself. Even if I know the answer is no, you know, I'm still going to advocate for myself because that's kind of my gift to me.
Welcome to Normalizing Non-Monogamy, the podcast where we interview incredible people from all over the world to hear their personal journeys of self-discovery through the lenses of love, sex, and relationships.
Our mission is to show people that they're not alone and to inspire them to embrace their true selves so that together we can open minds and live authentically without shame.
We believe everyone's story is powerful and beautiful, yet it's important to remember that everyone does life a little bit differently and that the views and opinions expressed by our guests do not necessarily reflect our own.
Additionally, we aren't doctors. Please consult a medical professional for anything regarding your health that you might learn about on the show. Enjoy!
Welcome to episode 319. We're Finn and Emma, and today we have a wonderful interview with Evita. You may remember Evita. She was on our podcast back in episode 229 in March of 2022. You do not have to listen to that episode before this one. However, it's recommended if you want to. Definitely go listen.
Because it's an amazing conversation.
Exactly.
Hence, bringing Evita back again.
Exactly. So this time, Evita comes back, gives us an update on her journey, and it's an amazing discussion.
Yeah, I would just say one of the things that really stuck out to me through this is when we talked to Evita last, she had sort of transitioned out of her marriage and was just about to start, or was just sort of at the beginning of her solo poly journey. And now we're kind of catching up with her 2 years later, and there's a lot more reflection and conversation about what that journey has been like. And it's amazing that she has sort of multiple lenses she can look at non-monogamy through. We got started as a swinging married couple, all the way to I went through a divorce, and now I'm navigating this as a solo person with multiple partners and long distance relationships. And so she really brings a wide perspective, and it is a really beautiful conversation. So thank you, Evita, for coming on once again, sharing more of yourself and more of your vulnerability with us, and for writing a book.
Yes. Earlier this fall, Evita published a book titled A Polyamory Devotional, 365 Daily Reflections for the Consensually Nonmonogamous. We're super excited to get this out here, our conversation out here, and her book, promotion for her book, out into the world. We're very excited. Thank you so much, Evita, for all of the work that you've done.
You know how it's an awesome book?
Why?
Because the foreword was written by another former guest of ours.
That's also true.
Shanae from episode 306. So, clout. That's all it is clout.
And really amazing collaborations.
Yes. So please go check out all of Evita's work. Links are in the podcast show notes. I would also say check out her Instagram. She does a lot of these daily devotionals as sort of her is live or on Reels, probably Reels. I don't know shit about Instagram. So she does videos and they come through the screen and they're amazing. That is what I'm trying to say. So please, again, check out all of Evita's work. We hope you enjoy this conversation with her. For anybody who is a premium subscriber, we're going to jump right on into the interview now. And for the rest of you, we have probably what I would consider to be the most amazing announcements in the podcast world.
Always.
First up,
if you're not familiar with the premium subscription, it is a way to skip all of these amazing announcements. Not that you want to, but maybe you do. So you can go to our homepage, normalizingnonmonogamy.com, scroll down, and you can find how to sign up right there.
And then if you scroll all the way back up to the very top, there's a banner that talks about an upcoming virtual meet and greet, and that will be on January 26th.
Yeah, next year.
Next year, 2024. And we're super pumped for that.
So mark your calendars now. You got plenty of notice.
That's right. You can even sign up now. So we hope to see you then. You can sign up there on the banner at the top, or you can go down to the events tab and you'll find all of the information there. We would love to meet you, greet you, and see you in a couple of weeks.
Yes. Next up, if you go over to the community tab, you can check out our virtual community. For only $5 a month, you get access to monthly Q&As, men's groups, women's groups calls, and an incredible support system. People in there cheering each other on every single day.
Yeah, we use a platform called Mighty Networks. It's an app, short for application. It's a combination of sort of chat rooms, forums, and it's a private closed network. So only our amazing people can see what you post. So it's a really great place to get private and very close-knit support from people just like you. So we would love to have you join us and the almost 300 other members from all around the world. As Emma said, it's only $5 a month. So we would love to have you join us. Click on that community tab and you will find out how to do so.
Last but not least, go over to the resources tab. And hey, it's the holidays. It is a great time to go get tested for STIs. And using our favorite...
Tis the season.
Tis the season.
Forget happy Honda days. This is the season for getting tested for STIs.
Why not? Are you going to a really fun New Year's Eve party?
Yes, you are.
So use our favorite way to get tested for STIs. It is stdcheck.com. Using the links on the resources page, you can get $10 off, making a 10-panel test only $129, and you support the podcast. So thank you in advance for doing that. And you support the general non-monogamous community.
Yeah, which is amazing. And thank you all for doing that. I would just say one quick addition on this is a service Emma and I have used for years and we absolutely love it. And, Emma was just cheering you on to go to your New Year's Eve party. The cool thing about this service is, let's say you decided like 3 days in advance. That's still enough time usually to get tested, get your results, and have them to show at the door if you want, or at the bedside table if that's where you're at. Who knows?
Who knows?
Anyway, love this service. Hope you check it out. And it seems like lots of you love it as well. So thank you to everybody who's used those links this year.
Yes, thank you, everyone. And a quick reminder, reach out to us, send us a voicemail, send us an email. We would love to hear from you. If you'd like to be a guest on the show, or if you have any feedback for us, we would love to hear from you.
And maybe one other thing we would ask as a holiday gift for us, head over, if you love the show, leave us a review on one of the many different podcast platforms that you listen on. We would really appreciate that. Yep.
We would.
All right. And with that, let's go talk to Evita. We'll see you all on the other side with a wonderful outro, as you would imagine.
Let's go.
Good afternoon, Evita. Welcome back. We've had you on the show. We always love having the return guests come back, but particularly excited for this one. You've got a new book out. You've got a lot going on in life. So welcome back.
Thank you for having me. I've been really, really excited about this conversation because I had such a great time with you both the last time.
Yeah, wonderful. Well, for anybody who's not familiar with the loveliness that is Evita, would you like to introduce yourself for all of us and we'll figure out where to go from there?
Sure. Yes. Thank you. I am Evita Levita Locust Sawyers, pronouns she, her, and I am the creator of today's Polyamory Reminder. I am a polyamory and non-monogamy coach, educator, content creator, speaker, and now published author. So I'm the published author of the new Polyamory Devotional 365 Reflections for the Consensually Nonmonogamous. So yes, that's who I am.
Congratulations.
Yeah, that's amazing. And we'll definitely dig more into your book and work for sure. But just to high level, touch on it. So that you kind of said you're the creator of the daily reminder, polyamory reminder. Maybe what does that look like? And how did that maybe just quickly morph into a book? I'm assuming.
Yeah, so it was actually a COVID experiment. I had gotten laid off and then the world shut down and everybody was home. And I sort of challenged myself to see if I could come up with like 365 sort of like polyamory wisdoms, reminders, things to reflect on. because we were all in the house and what could we do anyways? And I was already speaking on non-monogamy and my experience and kind of talking to people about how to navigate it was something I was already doing and had already been doing. And every so often I would get like a little, like, I don't know, like a phrasing or a sentence that I was like, oh, this is a really good thing to remind people of or to reflect on. And I would post them. And so I was like, oh, I wonder if I can, like, challenge myself to post one every day for a year. And then once I get a year's worth, compile them and turn them into like a book or like a devotional. I have had several devotionals at various points in my life for different, subject matters. And I kind of like that format of just a small snippet of something, poignant and profound, but also like bite-sized, so how do I say the most like profound thing in the simplest, most concise way is, something that I enjoy. And so that, experiment turned into, the body of work that is now my book.
I love it. I love it. And for somebody who takes the most simple and concise things and makes them as long and drawn out as possible, I have a lot of admiration for your ability to do that.
Oh, I also do that as well.
Okay, good. Then we still have some common ground.
But that does take skill to make it, summarize it.
Right. It does. And people, it's, you have a character limit, you have a small frame, and often, these topics, we want to make them a lot more simple, than they are. And in some ways, they are very simple. When you're talking about the broad strokes or the generalities of different, things, but, where it becomes, more complex is how do I distill that down to my situation? How do I tailor that to me is where it becomes a lot more complex and nuanced.
Totally.
So, my challenge is, how do I take this thing and, distill it down to the simplest wisdom that's possible that, most people can connect to, while also leaving space for the fact that this is nuanced and it's not just as simple as these words are comprising it to be.
Yeah. Yeah. Polyamory and non-monogamy are a lot of things, but simple and easy aren't necessarily two of those things.
No.
I have found.
No. In some ways, I feel like it can be simple because I do feel like I think it's that thing, but I don't think that's, I don't think it's just in non-monogamy. I think that's life in general. And I think that's just part of being as a human is we at once make things very simple and also very complex. Mm-hmm. And so I feel like polyamory is really the same way. It's at once very simple in that it's normal human relating. It's being vulnerable with each other. It's speaking our truths. It's, asserting our boundaries. It's communicating. It's all of these things that we think should be really simple and really easy and something that even a child knows. Well, hey, if you have a problem, you need to talk to someone about it. But, as humans, we kind of make things a lot more complex. So I feel like sometimes it's at once very simple and also at once very complex. But I think the human experience is just paradox in general. So.
Yeah, totally. Well, I think it's that idea that, yeah, maybe these are, like you said, oh, I something's going on, I should talk to somebody. And then you have 500 voices going, no, just keep that shit to yourself. Nobody wants to hear it. You get socialized in all these different ways. And so something that could be, or maybe potentially is simple, gets all of our baggage brought into it. And then it gets really fucking hard. Or can.
And not only our baggage, but the baggage of the person that we're interacting with. So even if it's simple enough to be like, oh, okay, I'm going to say something, and you do the thing, you say the thing and you choose your words carefully and you make sure that you're like owning your shit and, right. And only coming to them with what's theirs and holding on to what's yours. But you have no control over like how it lands for the person on the other side. And that also adds complications. And so, we're not in this theater, by ourselves. We're interacting with the other humans around us.
Yeah. Well, I'm excited to have all the wisdom here with us today. Clearly you've been doing it perfectly, but I just, so maybe take us really quick back in time on a quick road trip to the history of your non-monogamy up until maybe roughly a year and a half ago and sort of how you got into it, what it's looked like, high level, and then we'll force people to go back.
Go right through all of that. It's super simple, like we just described.
Right. I'll try to distill it down to the most important parts. But yeah, I've been non-monogamous now for over a decade. I started initially with my then spouse at the time. We have since separated and gotten divorced. And we started with swinging, which, is a huge gateway into polyamory. And swinging worked very well for me. It wasn't so much for him because I think he's a lot more demisexual, than I am. So it was kind of a challenge for both of us. And so he was a lot more intrigued by polyamory and like other forms of non-monogamy than I was. But then we decided to give it a try. I wanted the opportunity to be able to develop romantic connections with women because I'm a queer person. And so that's how we got into it. And then since then, it's been this, very illuminating, expansive, harrowing at times journey. And so like I said, we started with swinging, and then about a few years, maybe a couple of years into that journey, we met a woman that we both dated for about 2 years. And that was a very integrated relationship. She lived with us. We never once we got into it, we never really got the concept that we need to hide it or we need to kind of keep it separate from our regular lives. We were pretty much from the gate oh, okay, this is what we're doing. And, we're going to integrate it and incorporate it into, all facets of our life. So she lived with us for a while. That relationship ended. And then from that point on, we were just open. So I've had various configurations of relationships and connections and things, since I've been along this pathway. And then in 2020, September 2020, my husband made the decision to end our marriage. And so we moved down started the process of, becoming separated and then divorced. And so at that time, I was married and living in San Diego, California. Due to the divorce, I decided to move back across the country to New Jersey with my family. And so now I'm living this single sort of non-monogamous life, which is very, very different and very interesting. The two, navigating non-monogamy as a person who's married. But I also am kind of okay, I'm getting the opportunity to maybe experience a different side of it. One that I, just did not know about because I didn't have that vantage point because that just wasn't my experience. So I feel like it's allowed me to be a little bit more fleshed out in the wisdom, that I can offer because so much of non-monogamy content comes from the place of, you're already partnered and, couples opening up and, couples moving through this and how to navigate that space. And I don't feel like there's as much given to how do you move through it as a person who doesn't have an anchor relationship, or isn't, attached to somebody in a couple. You may have partners and things, but you're not necessarily coupled in any way. So I feel like it's given me the opportunity to, be able to, sit in that experience and offer wisdom for that experience as well. So now, I'm here, still living in New Jersey. I have a long distance partner who lives in California. And then I've recently started seeing someone, and that's been a few months in the making. So, and that has been an interesting journey too, because I'm exploring kink a lot more in that space, which I was adamant that I was vanilla for years, and my friends were just seriously, no. And I was just no. And to the point where they joked that I was vanilla with sprinkles. And so I've gotten an opportunity out here to explore my kink edges a lot more. And so that's been an exciting journey as well. And how, non-monogamy intersects with that, because there's a huge intersection of non-monogamy and kink. And I was always kind of, adjacent to it because, all of my friends were into it, but it wasn't me. But now I'm actually exploring it for myself. So that's been an exciting journey.
Yeah. Amazing. Well, I think you crushed it on the high level overview.
Yes, you did. That was actually very impressive.
Yeah. and I would love to, maybe a really great place to pick up is you kind of touched on, you've now had the experience to sort of live in non-monogamy in two different paradigms. The married anchor partner, it doesn't have to be married, right? But anchor partner, I came into this partnered, or I'm doing this as a solo person. And not that you don't have partners, but there is a difference. And I'm curious, maybe now it sounds like it's maybe been about 2 years or so since you've been on that sort of new path. What is some of the thoughts, feelings, differences that you've experienced in that for yourself?
I was just talking to my publisher about this. I find that for me, I'm a lot less willing to take risks in my connections with others as I was when I was married, because my marriage was like, I called it like my oatmeal relationship, or like my staple relationship. Like, I had a relationship that gave me the like basic essentials of relating, so I knew that if I had a bad day, I had someone that, if all else fails, unless they were just off or not available, I could go to that person for, cuddles or just whatever, and so having that kind of oatmeal staple relationship made me a lot more adventurous in my relationship choices, because if something went, belly up, or it just didn't go well or whatever,
You had something to fall back
I
to.
had this person,
Yeah.
I had something to fall back on. I had this person at home that I knew I could at least get the bare, essentials of what it is that I need out of connecting to people. And now that I don't have that, I'm a lot more circumspect about the choices that I make to connect with people, because it's almost like the thought is like, Vita, you got one shot. Okay? You got one shot to get what you need out of this. And if you don't, you may not, it may be a while, it may be a couple of weeks, it may be a couple months, for you to get, what you need from this connection. And so I'm a lot more picky. I'm a lot more careful. It is a lot more challenging in some ways, navigating it as a single person. In some ways, it's a lot easier, because I'm not thinking about what my partner is doing with someone else, the way that manifested when I was living with a spouse and I had a nested partner. I definitely have a partner, and he has other partners, and he has other connections, but I'm very removed from a lot of that. It's an LDR. We don't live together. And so it allows me the space to, be a lot more removed from his connections to other people in a way that makes it easier sometimes for me to show up to it. Whereas when I was living with my spouse, I'm seeing everything in real time. We're actually having to make these real time logistical decisions about how we navigate, our interactions with other people. And there was just a lot more opportunity there for, occasional or, sometimes frequent challenging emotions to surface. Whereas in this era of dating, that kind of degree of separation allows me to be a lot more at ease, in my non-monogamy, because I'm just not as close
Totally
to what my partners are doing with other people. And to the point where I'm like, okay, I know that I, would like to get married again, but I'm like, do I want a nesting partner again? I kind of like, that I live by myself, and, I can, if somebody calls me up and is like, yo, what you doing tonight? Can I come through? A little booty call type tip. I'm like, yep, I don't have to worry about when my spouse is home, and then two, my partners have the freedom to also do that themselves. And they don't have to worry about me being in the house. So there's a part of me that's like, yeah, I'd like to get married again, or I'd like to have some kind of life partnership, but what do I want that to actually look like? Because there is a level of freedom that I have in maneuvering my dating and relationship life that I didn't experience when I was married, and I kind of enjoy it.
Yeah.
And it sounds like you're taking time to kind of figure that out. You're not rushing it. You had the experience of living with a nesting partner and married with them, and now you're having this experience, and just allowing yourself to be open to, how do these both feel? What do I actually want moving forward? And allowing that to ebb and flow as you figure it out.
Yeah, and it's very peculiar because I didn't realize just how much, because me and my husband were married for 17 years. So just how deeply seeped in that feeling of always having somebody there was for me, because it was my, my life for 17 years, just always having someone there. And now not having that, it's interesting. It's a challenging space to navigate, and then also to make sure that I'm being mindful of that I'm not making choices to interact with people just for the sake of having, because I'm so used to that experience of having and the feeling, that longing. I'm really getting to know the emotional experience of longing, and loneliness, being by myself. And, people have said, well, it's because you don't know how to be I love being by myself. I take myself on dates all the time. I love being home in my own energy. It's not really that. It's just that, I'm wired for connection. I love being in connection. I love being in relationship. And so making sure that even though I'm feeling, this longing and this yearning and just this adjustment to, not having someone, there like I used to before, but also making sure that I'm not allowing that to fuel me to make choices in my connections with people that are just about the sake of alleviating that experience and not about the genuine connection with that person.
Yeah. I love that you said that, because it almost dovetails right into sort of a thought that I had around the balance between two things. One is, you said, right, I'm no longer, do I have maybe the safety or security that I can always fall back on? So I'm much more careful. Balancing that with, and I don't necessarily love this word, but a little bit of desperation maybe at times, or a scarcity mindset maybe is a better way to say it. That, like,
That's a great word.
yeah, that you're like, if I don't make this date work out, there aren't going to be cuddles tonight. And so then you have to sit in that and go, okay, does this connection warrant cuddles, or am I just pushing it because I'm feeling like I could really use that piece? And not to say that we don't ever say, well, you know what, this isn't really going anywhere, but I could use a cuddle or a fuck, whatever it is. But finding that balance between your safety, your security, and needs that aren't getting met anymore in the way that they used to.
Yes, it's a major league struggle, and then also making sure that you are, on the same page with the people that you're interacting with, so that they know, this is the space you occupy in my life, and these are the feelings that I have, and are you okay with that, and are you in agreement? Is also like crucial, because I don't judge, people going, like you said, this is just a fuck, or this is just a cuddle, or I'm just going to interact with this person for this way because this is a need that I haven't met, and they're here, willing to meet it. But we want to make sure that, people are aware that that's what we're doing, and that's what's happening. And then it's like this weird intersection for me also of a time when being tender from the marriage ending and, all that goes into divorce. Because I didn't really want my marriage to end, and I did love my husband very much. And while I'm very much at peace with the fact that we're not together anymore and understand its necessity and it makes sense, but it's still, it still hurts. I still miss the experience of having a person. And so, making sure that, but at the same time, like, I don't feel as inclined to just, jump at any person that I find attractive or have a little bit of chemistry with. Like, there's also this part of me that's like, oh, I'm really tender right now. Mm-hmm. And so I also need to make sure, kind of how you were talking about with safety, is that, if I am showing up to interact with these, opportunities, that they're ones that I feel safe in, because I am so tender. And so a normal dating disappointment at a different time in my life would hit a little bit more hard because of just the tenderness of the period in general. And so that's also something I have to pay attention to.
Yeah. Yeah. Being aware of those emotional space that you're in.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then how do I relate that to polyamory?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not easy.
No.
And I love that you bring in the importance of communicating to these other people that you're dating, where you're at, what you're looking for, how, to be honest with them about, this is where I'm at right now. That may change in the future. I don't know, but this is what I'm bringing to the table, and they can opt in or out of that, and they can bring what they are bringing to the table and tell you. And having that open and honest communication is really important. And also, not everyone, it's not necessarily always intuitively done.
No, it's also challenging, because asking for what you need and stating what you value, about a connection with the person is vulnerable, because they may not value the same things, they may not want the same things with you. And I feel like these last few years of this time in my life have really been me going deeper in my work of asking for what I want, being honest about what my needs are, or what I'm, seeking to engage a person for, and being upfront, with that, and going hey, this is what I'm interested in this connection. This is what I would like to do with you. Are you on the same page, and can we do that? Each time, while I do find that my resolve to interact that way gets easier because I know it's necessary and it's a thing that I need to do. It's the quickest way to get me to the, where I want to go in the direction I need to go in. But I don't find that each time, like, it gets easier to do, like each time it's still like, I still feel that like, ooh, I'm getting ready to go this person. Like literally this morning, I'm here, like I said, I'm seeing someone here. And they had stayed the night. And I was like, kind of thinking about how I wanted the morning to go. And I, had this request that I had to make of them. And I'm like, it took me a while to really like work up the the stuff to like say like, hey, this is what I want to do. And this is what I'd like us to experience. And I'm 41,
Yeah, you think with practice it would get easier, and sometimes it just doesn't.
No, it really doesn't. Each time it's like, all right, you have to like steel yourself to go, okay. And I really think it's just, that understanding, we're not always going to get the answer that we want, when we come to a person and express what our needs are, what our desires are, whatever. Sometimes we're going to get a no, sometimes we're going to get a not that like that, and needing to be okay. And I think a lot of times, I think people communicate their needs, or they think that the purpose of communicating their needs is to get what they want, And to me, I don't feel like that's the purpose of communicating my needs. I mean, that's one of the purposes of communicating my needs, but for me, it's not the primary function. The primary function for me of communicating my needs or asking for what I want is advocating for myself and always being in an ethic of I need to advocate for myself. So even if I do not get what I need, even if the answer is no, the point was not, or the primary point for me was communicating and expressing my need because it's something that I need to do. And then if I get what I need, that's just a bonus, That's a bonus benefit. But the first benefit for me is standing up for myself and advocating for myself. I want to always exist in such a way to where I'm not like, if the answer is no, I'm afraid I don't advocate myself. Even if I know the answer is no, I'm still going to advocate for myself because that's kind of my gift to me.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and it also lets the other person know exactly where you're at, right? And then in an ideal world, they can look at it and say, okay, you've been honest with me. Now I can be honest with you and say, I'm in or I'm out based on what you want. And this is one of those places where we take the simple path and we make it all fucking muddy. But I think that's the dream, right? You get to say, I would like it to look exactly like this. And they can go, I can do that, or I can do it without this piece. And how do we create something that works for both? Like, that's the dream, right? But as you say, we all stumble in that process. I have to now say it, and then somebody else has to hear it and interpret it the same way that you were saying it. And then they have to be able to say there's so much that has to happen. And it's scary. And I'm curious too for you, do you find in there as well that there's some excitement or joy, or maybe that is some of the draw that brings you back to it? Because if it never worked, if it was always just hard, right? I feel like we would give up on it and say, well, it's just fucking hard. I'm not doing it.
It does feel good when I, make a request of a partner and they're enthusiastic. Yes, absolutely. Mm-hmm. Totally. That does feel good. It also feels good when I am able to like know that I have like gotten the right language to say what it is that I'm saying. Like, that's always a sense of accomplishment as well. It's like, oh, I communicated exactly what I wanted, and I hit the nail on the head, and this person received it. And the answer was yes. So, so that part I do enjoy. I also feel like in order for me to ensure that I am in relationships where large in part my needs are being met is by asking for my needs, because that way it's a great filter, for people that are willing to meet your needs and are willing to meet your needs in the way that matter to you and that value to you, and people that aren't, is by stating them. So if I'm not stating them, I won't ever really know if the relationships that I'm in are ones that can meet my needs and ones that can't. Yeah. And the people in my life won't ever get to like consent to go, yeah, like, I'm totally down for meeting your needs in that way, or no, I can't be in relationship with you like that. And maybe we need to do something different because the needs that you have in that space are not ones that I can or am willing to provide.
Yeah.
So it's that's really why I keep coming back to it, because, it's kind of one of those things that if I don't continue that work, usually what will end up happening is you'll just kind of find yourself in a space to where you're not hardly getting any needs met. Or if you're getting needs met, it's happening by, luck of the draw.
Mm-hmm.
For me, I'm like, well, sometimes that is life and life is luck. And, life also has to be directions. I feel like that's one of the messages that I've received over the last couple of years from the universe. 'Cause I'm a very go with the flow kind of person. And I can also be very like, well, I don't need that, or, oh, it's cool. I can kind of be very that way. And I feel like the universe kind of says, Vivi, you got to pick up the oars and row sometimes. It's like, yeah.
Well, it sounds like this asking for your needs and voicing them, being forward about them. It sounds like that is one of the strategies to what we were talking about earlier, taking care of yourself, making sure that you are safe, making sure that the people you're interacting with are going to be able to show up for you in that way, right? It's the upfront stating of the needs before you get maybe too deep into it. You're too swept off your feet to be like, okay, well, they just said they can't meet any of my needs, but damn it, I'm in limerence, I'm in lust, I'm in love, whatever. I'm gone. So fuck all my needs.
Yeah. And I think that we can tend to focus on the person that we want instead of what we want, and then try to, accept what it is that they're coming with, or like get rid of our needs. Well, I don't really need that. I don't really need that, because I'm more concerned about the person that I want. Whereas like for me now, I feel like my focus is, okay, knowing the things that I want, how I want to feel in a relationship, what I want to say about how my partner shows up to me, etc. And then going, okay, and then let me find someone that, meets most of those things that I value, as opposed to doing it the other way around. We're just focusing on a person. Because I've also noticed that, a lot of the things that I am attracted to don't always come from like the healthiest parts of myself. Some of the things do, but some of them don't, So I'm like, oh, if I'm like really feeling this person, sometimes, that's a great thing. And sometimes it's like, that's not so great of a thing, because, some of the things that I get into don't come from the part of myself that like wants myself to have good things, So I gives myself good things. So it's important, that I'm like paying attention to that too.
Yeah. I love that. I think the idea of partner selection is like really critical around this. And I think the easiest thing that came to mind for me when you were talking about this is you're swiping through the dating profiles and somebody's like, they're your type, they're everything about them is like your dream person. And then it's like, looking for my next long-term nesting partner. I want to have kids and make a family and all this stuff. And you're over here thinking, well, I don't want kids. I've already got a family. I could probably make time once a month. You're like, but I don't know, but they're my type, so I'm going for it. And then you're jumping into something that you're not aligned, but you're just basing it off of like, I want to make it work with this person versus like, yeah, let's find a person that works. Right.
Yeah. And especially with polyamory specifically, that has so many moving pieces. And I was, sometimes, people will tell me what their like polyamorous fantasy is, or like what because we all have them, I want to live in a house with the, all my metamors or whatever, There's all kinds of, different fantasies that people have in polyamory, but then they'll make choices of people that I'm like, I'm like, I don't know that you're going to be able to achieve that with that person. And that in and of itself isn't a terrible thing, because we don't have to necessarily live our fantasy with every person that we interact with. But sometimes, people will make choices in their relationships or partner choices that are like in direct contravention, to what it is that they say that they want. And so I think that we don't really talk about like how important good partner selection is in like crafting the relationship experience that you want to have. And good partner selection, I've found now that as I've gotten older, it takes time. It takes being willing to be intentional and conscientious and circumspect, having those check-in conversations, being upfront in the beginning about like, what trajectory you want the relationship to be on, what you are envisioning for how you want to be in relationship to one another. It takes a lot of that work, because it is really, really important that we're choosing people that, share our vision for the relationship experience that we want to have.
Yeah. It is important. And I was curious a little bit on that note. You said back at the beginning that you're in a long distance relationship with somebody in California. You moved from California to New Jersey. So I'm like curious, how does that relationship work for you? Because long distance relationships are challenging, can be challenging. They can also fit really nicely in our lives if we're conscious about how we do that. And so I just wanted to touch on that. And since we're talking about needs and everything, kind of how that relationship fits in your life.
Fortunately, that partner is probably the most secure I've ever felt in a relationship, in my life. And like I said, I was married for 17 years. But the way I always say that my partner loves you with precision. He's just very precise in how he shows up and loves you. And it allows me to feel really secure in that relationship. So even with the moving away, I mean, obviously I was really sad about it. And we always existed in some kind of long distance capacity, because even though I lived in California, he still was about a 2-hour, drive from me. So it wasn't we were seeing each other once a week or whatever. So, now we communicate via Polo and, video call, and we do video dates, and, we've seen each other. My children are in California. So whenever I go out to California for the holidays to visit my children, we make time for one another. He's also been this way a few times since we've been together. And, it mostly is just us kind of acknowledging that even though, we have a large physical distance from one another, we're still close in spirit, close in desire for each other. We still maintain that, the feelings that we have for each other are the same. We just can't always, enact them in a physical way, because we're not close to each other. But all of the regard and the, ardor and the things that we experience for each other is still there. So, and so we've just, each just one day at a time, one step at a time, going, how do we maintain this connection that we have when now we factor in physical distance? And so far we've done really well. So, we're coming up on 4 years actually this month. And, I always feel like I'm still day one, head over heels for him. So, which is nice. That relationship is really great, because I feel like it's probably one of the relationships that I've experienced the most alignment with how we want to be in connection with one another, how we want to relate to the world. And I think that's kind of the glue, that keeps us together across the miles.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, I love that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think too, the piece in there about, I think, transitioning from, long-ish distance to very long distance, right? And having to probably in some ways grieve it's not going to be, you weren't seeing each other every week, but you probably saw each other more than you see each other now. And to say we now need to, or want to, we don't need to do anything, but we want to maintain our connection. We want to maintain this relationship, and our feelings haven't changed. But now, there's a new constraint, and we don't get to do it the same way, right? You don't live 2 hours away. You live, a 4 or 5 hour flight away, and that's a whole different story. And so I just, as Emma said, that's really challenging, and it's challenging to go and take a relationship and have it exist in different forms.
Yeah, and it sometimes can be challenging being as supportive in non-monogamy when you're further away, because, their local connections get to have experiences with them that I don't get to have. They get to have interactions with them that I just don't get to have. And, that can impact sometimes my ability to be as compersive, or, to be as just oh, yeah, you're going on a date. Wow. Are you really getting to know this person and y'all are liking each other? That's great. And while I do, feel those sentiments, but I also feel a measure of envy or sadness around I don't get to just spontaneously go grab coffee with you, or get a hug from you, or, have sex. I remember my partner and I went through some conflicts earlier this year, and it was really, really challenging, because those normal ways that you would think of to repair rupture, cuddling, fancy a fuck, going on a date, all of those things are just not available to us. And so we were like, how do we, reestablish that sense of closeness when we literally cannot be close to each other? What does that even look like?
Yeah.
For us? And I feel like it took longer to repair and to get back to that feeling of closeness than it would have if, we had the opportunity to actually be in person with one another.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Totally. And to I mean, so we've been in long distance relationships. We've played this game, and it has so many challenges. And I think one there that is also hard is let's say you're needing some support or they're needing support, and you want to be there to support. And like you said, maybe what that support needs to be is no words. It's just, let me hold you, let me hug you, let's just sit together. And you can't. And so all you can do sometimes is be like, you send these messages like, I care so much, you have no idea, but I can't do anything. And
yeah. And that's also challenging too, is just not feeling like you're able to really be present, for your partner, in sometimes these really meaningful ways. So milestones that they have, just different things like that. You're sort of, watching each other's lives kind of from a distance. That can be hard. Like I definitely had times where, I could have used that day was just a hug, from my partner. And they're just not able to give me that. And while we do have like a video chat, like I said, in Polo, and, thank God for technology, because I'm also in that same space with my kids. I moved away. All of my life was in California, so all of my friends, everything was over there. And so, so it is a challenge, but, it's taught me how to be in relationship differently. It's taught me how to learn how to get different things from love. And so in that regard, it has been an enjoyable experience. I will say that I am I can only do one,
one long distance.
Right. Yeah. Maybe two, because actually the person I'm seeing out here just told me that they're moving to another state. And I was like, oh, really? I was like, oh, wow. Okay. Yeah.
Is it a bordering state that's within an hour drive? I hope.
No.
Yeah,
It's not terribly far. So it's a little bit down the coast, but it's still, I was not happy about it. So let me say, I was happy for them, because it's a choice that they need to make. But I was in my pouty little baby feelings about it. So, but also I understood it deeply because I had to do it too. I had to make the same decision, when I chose to move, to go to my partner and say, this isn't a reflection of, how much I care about you. I actually care about you very deeply. And also I have to make this choice for my life, right now. And it was, beautiful to me that his response to it was just like, okay, this is what we're doing. And so, it enabled me to be able to have that same response and be like, okay, this is what we're doing. And also, I'm like, all right, I'm maxed out on that, y'all. Right.
Yeah.
5 to 10 mile radius only from this point forward.
If I can't walk, it ain't happening.
Right, exactly. You got to be next door. I'm gonna go and post something on my neighbor's doorway, single and ready to mingle.
I love it. And I love to, Evita, just how many perspectives you bring. In a decade of doing this, or a little over a decade of doing this, the perspectives you have, I think, are so powerful, and they give you, I don't want to say an edge, but I think as you do this, right, we gain experience and we go through these experiences and we say, okay, we can do things differently than we did 10 years ago. And I think there's just value in recognizing that for somebody listening who says, well, yeah, I mean, if my partner moved, I would have a hell of a time with it. And that's not to say you're not, but you also got to say, I was that person, right? And now you're similarly, right? Perhaps you find yourself in a partnership with somebody who's, long-term married, and you go, I've been on that side, and you've done this dance from different perspectives, and you get to take that as you move through it, and you just get to sort of add the knowledge, and that shapes how you go through it. And I think there's just a lot in there that's really amazing, and I'm grateful that we get to talk about it. So that wasn't a question, but if you want to talk on it, feel free. But I'm very grateful for that.
No, I love being able to expand my vantage point, you know? I'm like, how many angles are here? How many perspectives can we see? How many shades, can we see? Because, that allows me to be able to, I feel like, make the best choices, in the situations that I'm in, because, I'm seeing more. And so I like, opening my mind to various perspectives. And I also like really being present in the different stages that I move through. Because I'm like, oh, like, what is this, what is the vantage point here? Like, what does this lens look like? When I look through this lens, what am I able to see? I feel like that's just helpful in general. So yeah, it helps me to be a more well-rounded person.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I think too, I will say for myself, there's a lot of empathy that can come from that, right? Because you can look at somebody else's situation and be like, I can put myself in your shoes. I bet that's really hard, blah, 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 right? But to be like, I can put myself in your shoes because I've worn those shoes. I literally wore those shoes a year ago and it's hard as fuck. So I get it in a different way where maybe some of those, the word negative feelings, those feelings of, oh, this is hard, or I'm feeling some jealousy or envy. For me, it's easier to tamp those down if I can remember the time that I was that other person having to move, or that other person, having to transition or end a relationship, like navigating that at the same time that you're in a different partnership. Like that's a whole set of skills that you don't learn that in monogamy school. Like you end one, you start another one. The two shall never cross.
Yeah, the golden rule applies like so much. I feel like in non-monogamy, it really does. It's like treating others how I would want to be treated. How would I want to be treated in this scenario? How would I want my partner to treat me if, they were the one that had feelings about something that I was doing and they needed to address that with me? What do I want? What would I want them to say? What would I want them to remember about me? So when they're in that space where they're feeling triggered and they're feeling activated, what would I want them to remember about me? Remember to the best of their ability that overall their experience of me is a kind person. To remember that, I don't, seek to hurt them. To remember that I care about them, and then I try to remember those things myself, whenever I'm here. And I'm like, well, I'll get a lot further with this person when I try to incorporate their image, and their perspective, and make sure that we're collaborating as we're painting the picture of what's happening between us, as opposed to just, working on painting, my perspective. And so that takes a willingness to be able to, kind of sit in their seat and go, well, if I was sitting here, what would I be feeling, or what would I be thinking, or how would this be landing for me? And kind of validating for them, like, oh yeah, I can see where you got that from, even if it wasn't my intent, or vice versa. Or I can see why you made that choice that you made, even though it landed for me this way. It's learning to hold the both and people have such a hard time with that, holding that both and, it's always like either my perspective is completely right and there's no room for any other things, or this other person is completely right. I think people have a hard time going, it's a both and not a either or.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, it's often like it's kind of innate in us too. Like sometimes you have to almost consciously do that switch from to the both and rather than the either or. It's so easy it depends on our personalities too and our upbringing and all of that, but like how much we think in the black and white, but to switch that takes conscious effort.
And, sometimes some things have to be black and white for you too. And that's totally okay.
Yeah.
But you have to also understand that like, this is black and white for me. It may not be black and white for this other person. So, there are some things for me that, that's just going to be black, it's just going to be white. And that's pretty much the way it is. But I have to hold that, like, that's how I see it. You know what I mean? That's how I see it. It doesn't necessarily mean that's how this other person sees it. And so even in that, there is a both and as well. But I enjoy trying to figure out, like, how can I hold, as much as here as possible. Because, like, I love what you said about empathy. I feel like it allows me to be a lot more empathetic. I think when we have these like very hard and, kind of rigid attachments to our perspectives on things, it really, really makes being empathetic and compassionate very challenging because you don't see any other's perspective but your own.
Yeah. Well, and therein lies the needle that has to be threaded is holding enough of yours true that you don't give that all up just to make it work with the person, right? That isn't right. Cause you could, like you said, like some days it's just black for me, right? It is black and white. And there is times, right, where you're like, look, your way of seeing it and my way of seeing it, we can't budge and we're incompatible. So now we have to respect that instead of saying, well, I think what a lot of us do, and we see this in monogamy world, but we see this in non-monogamy too, is you take those things where you do not align and you go, let's just never look at those because that doesn't go well. We'll put those away. We'll put them in the closet. We'll put it under a rug and it won't be a problem, except it's still a disparity between the two of you. And if you ever come near it, it gets you. And so that determining, right, is it a big enough one that you can put it, or is it too big for you to put away? Or can you be like, hey, look, we can just agree to disagree here and move about our lives in a very, cordial way, right?
Yeah. I feel like that's always the challenge is going, okay, how much of this is just something that we have to agree to disagree on, or just understand that we're not going to be on the same page about that, or even that those are things that we're going to have to share with others, because between the two of us, that's not shared. And then how many things are like, oh, this is actually something that needs to alter the course of what we're doing because it's that much of a misalignment that we're actually on different paths, or that we should be on a different path than the current path that we're on trying to navigate. So I feel like that is a big challenge to come up against. There are certain things that, if we don't have the same, opinion about horror movies, that's fine. Those are things that I can kind of lay on the threshing floor, but some of those really, really core relationship values, and then also core human values too. So like, what do I value about people in general, regardless of whether or not I have XYZ kind of relationship with them? Those are the things that I pay more attention to, making sure that, we're in alignment on those things.
Yeah. Thank you, Evita, for this just amazing conversation. Did you have more on that?
No, I mean, yes, I could talk about this for weeks, but it's probably kind of be respectful.
Well, I was going to say, I want to be respectful of your time and just appreciate everything that you've shared. As Finn said, we could keep talking about this for weeks, but I would love to dig into a little bit of your work and how, I guess, the inspiration for the book. I know you talked a little bit about it at the beginning, but inspiration, and then where people can find it, and
also what does it look like? What is the devotional? What can they expect when they go and buy it?
So I have it on my bookshelf. Let me grab it. Actually, I probably should have had it, but whatever. Okay. So the inspiration for it really some of it comes from my own experience. So I'll be doing things or having things happen, in my, relationship life that are very poignant to me and I like to share with people. And really that is where my sharing came from, is a desire to connect, with people and connect with, hey, is there, I'm feeling this thing. Is there anybody out? Can I get a witness? So what I say, is there anybody out there that's feeling this? Can I, is there someone out there that can say, yeah, I went through that, or yeah, I know what you mean. Because sometimes I would go through things in non-monogamy and they would be so isolating. I'd feel so isolated, when I was really struggling with something. And, sometimes I just wanted to know that I wasn't alone, and what I was experiencing or how something was landing for me, or even sometimes just wanting to know, am I off base, for this thing to be landing for me this way, which now I just have an understanding that my feelings are my feelings. But it sometimes can be so validating for someone to go, if I was in your shoes, I'd be feeling the exact same way, So a part of it, was about me wanting to, say, hey, is anybody out there, who feels this? And then also understanding that there probably are people out there that are feeling this and they're feeling just as lonely, as I was when I was feeling it. And so my sharing it is also, kind of like a beacon to others that it's like, oh, it's okay for me to not, for me to have complex emotions as I'm navigating this, or to not feel great about it all the time, or to, struggle, and have my insecurities and my wounds come up and surface. There are other people that are having that experience, and that's okay. And that's normal. Like, it's okay to be human, in this. And that was really probably my main message, is it's okay to be human. We're human and we're doing this. Polyamory and non-monogamy is not some evidence that we've transcended, some human, limitation. It really isn't. So, we bring our human selves to this loving and this living. And that's totally okay. And the more that we embrace that and acknowledge it and make room for it, and hold space for it, the more connected and honest we'll be with each other and with ourselves, the more healing that will, occur. For me, polyamory and non-monogamy is a deeply spiritual practice. And so a lot of this was me working through, my own epiphanies and, self-awarenesses and whatever. And I would have these moments of like, wow, this is really, really good. And I wonder if this would be helpful with someone else, to talk about, or helpful with someone else to name. And so that's kind of what got me talking about it. And then also too, when I first got into non-monogamy, there weren't really a lot of voices that felt gentle when it came to navigating the challenges. It felt like the loudest voices were the ones that were just like, get it together, don't be jealous, figure it out. I felt like that was the voices that were ringing the loudest. And maybe it was just because I was so sensitive about how jealous I was getting all the time, that's just what I would hear the most. But I just didn't feel like there was a voice that was gentle and was like, yeah, it's okay, that this thing made you jealous and stuff. And so it was kind of also one of those, being the voice that I wanted to have, when I first started. And then, I would also say, if I could just help one less person, feel alone, or even just help one less person sort of hack across, give them a shortcut, to getting through a breakthrough in their feelings experience, and non-monogamy, that's something that also makes me feel really good, because there was so many times when I was like, God, I am just beating my head up against the wall here. Can I get a cheat code? Somebody, can I get a cheat code? And, so if I can give someone, a little shortcut to, getting to more, stasis, about this, that always makes me feel really good. And so this is what the book looks like. It's, little handheld. It has 365 daily reflections, and they're just labeled day 1, day 2, day 3, not April 1st, April 2nd. And then there's there's a piece where there's a reflection at the top, and then there's a little blurb, that I've written about it. And then at the bottom, there's a question that you can ask yourself to kind of dig deeper, because I always say about the book that I don't want to create this army of Evitas who think and feel like I do. I want people to find themselves, in the book. I want you to find your answers, what is true for you about this thing that I'm saying, and so I liked having the reflection question down the bottom, so people don't walk away from it and just go, oh, okay, well, I read this thing that Evita said. But they, sit with themselves and go, what do I have to say about this? How do I feel about it? Because to me, that is when you can move through anything that you do with more assuredness and confidence, because you know what your answers are. And you're not kind of swayed to and fro, with the answers of others. You're secure in your relationship with your own voice, and you can trust it, That to me is really, really, really important. So many people are just not connected to their own voices, and not connected to their own wisdom for themselves.
Yeah.
And so it was really important for me to, create something where, people could begin to tap into their own internal wisdom, to find their own answers.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I love it.
I love that you said that there towards the end. I mean, I loved all of it, but that piece about, I mean, so like you touched on community a bit earlier and like the value and power of community and knowing, okay, I'm not the only one who's feeling this, but there is the double-edged sword of community where if you land in a community where maybe, I don't want to say they're doing it wrong, but maybe their views, their approaches are not in alignment with yours. Or maybe they are those people who are like, look, stop being jealous. You should just be full of compersion. Look at all of us. We do that. And you're sitting there going like, but damn it, I'm not like, and so the double-edged sword of community is if you land in one that doesn't really align for you and you don't have a good hold on your own values, your values get just washed right away and overridden by the community's values. And so being able to hold your own both and with the communities is critical. And so I'm glad that you said that and like that you worked that into the book, because I think that's amazing. So it gives people a way to develop that for themselves.
Yeah. And I find that often the loudest voices, in any community aren't necessarily a reflection of like my own. Mm-hmm. So, and while I do believe that it is important that we are seeking community of people that are in alignment with how we want to move through things, because sometimes we need examples, when it's like, okay, I don't know, how I want to navigate this particular situation that I'm in, but I have people around me who, our integrity matches with like how we want to show up. And so I can look to this person for guidance, if I needed it. And, I've lost my way. But that's not always available. Mm-hmm. And so it's learning how to like be your own North Star while you're still, finding your way towards, other, stars, that you are aligned with. And so that was important for me, is kind of getting the conversation going with people, or the process going of self-examination.
Yeah. Because
that to me is really important in non-monogamy, is self-examination, is being able to go sit with yourself and go, do I agree with this? Do I believe this? Is this a belief that I want to update or alter or throw away? Really being able to hone the skill of sitting with yourself and getting your own answers for yourself.
Yeah, it's critical.
Yeah. Well, and to say too, right? You also don't want to build a community that, like you said, that are just clones of yourself, because then you're living in an echo chamber. So it is a very fun, I say fun loosely, line to try to dance along of, I want this community to be aligned enough, but also and supportive enough that I can go against the community without it being against the community, right? That we have the freedom within community to bring our own values and our own truths, and those be received. So it's symbiotic relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's being able to stand your own ground and hold your own in community, and also have community that shows up well to when difference is there. Mm-hmm. And being able to support that. So, and I tend to normally have community around me that's like that, because I just do not know how to not be myself. So like, I really don't. I just do not know how to not be myself. And so, for me, it's just like, okay, like I have to make sure it's a good thing. I mean, in some respects, it is a good thing. I think in some ways it would be good for me to learn how to be able to turn that off sometimes, because I think there are just times in life where that is a requirement, and so many of our systems are set up so that is a requirement. But I just don't know how to like not be myself for the most part. And so I don't often, involve myself in communities where I, can't, I don't feel safe enough, to go against the grain if I needed to.
Yeah.
But also, that going against the grain, it does, it's hard to do sometimes, because, you're not sure if the community is going to be able to hold you in that or receive you, or, that's going to cut you off from community. So that is a challenging thing to do. And especially if, when we're thinking about things like non-monogamy, if you're in certain areas where community is scarce in general, mm-hmm. around that, it can be a challenge to sort of, be an outlier. But I actually kind of enjoy that space personally. So I kind of like it. So yeah.
Yeah. I love it too.
Well, thank you again, Evita. Again, we could do this for hours with you, but we would then leave the door open to have you back on again in the future. So let's definitely do that.
Yay.
And for anybody listening, links to all of your work are in the show notes, which people can find easily. We'll tell you how in the outro. We told you how in the intro. And any final thoughts for today before we let you go? Or any other questions, Emma?
No, I'm just really grateful for this conversation today, Evita.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity. I love talking to you both. And I love that we have such a flowing rapport. It just kind of like, it's very easy. It just feels like I'm just sitting down with some old friends having conversation. And I love having these conversations because sometimes they solidify things for me that I just had never articulated because no one had asked me a question that caused me to have to.
Yeah.
So I enjoy these conversations specifically because they help me to kind of find my own, sort of guiding lights.
Yeah, I love that.
Thank you.
Of course. Well,
yeah.
If nobody else has anything, we can bid you farewell for the day, and we will definitely do it again. Everybody, please go check out Evita's book, and have a fantastic day.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And we're back. Thank you so much, Evita, for such a lovely conversations, for coming back on again a second time to the podcast, and for sharing everything that you did, and for writing a book. A quick reminder, all listeners out there, go check out the show notes to this episode. You can find links to Evita's book. Go and check it out.
One more thank you to Evita. This one's just going out into the future. Thank you for coming on a third time, sometime,
right.
sometime in a few years. We look forward to that. And one of these days, we'll get to meet you in person.
Yes.
All right. So just a few quick reminders. At the end of January 26th, we have our next virtual meet and greet. You can always jump in and join our community so you can meet awesome people all day, every day. Check that out. That's on our website under the community tab. And next week, we've got an interview with Spade and Rose.
Yep. That's next week. I think that's it.
No, it's not quite it.
That's not?
No, we get to see everybody on Friday this week.
Oh, yeah, we do. Ask us anything.
Ask us anything. 2 wonderful questions that Miche and I'm biased, but I think we knocked them out of the park.
I'm sure you did.
You sure we did?
Yeah, I'm sure we did.
Emma will be surprised just like the rest of you. That's her birthday present.
Yes, that's true.
Yeah.
So go and listen to the episode on Friday and then come back next week and listen to Spade and Rose.
And we will see you all then. Until then.
Happy holidays, everyone. Whether you celebrate, don't celebrate, whatever, just enjoy some time.
Enjoy not working as hard. How about that?
Hopefully.
Yeah. That's what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
I'm going to work less.
Unless you work in retail. And then
I would stop. I would probably cash it in right about now, if I'm being honest.
Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah. The number of fucks given is equal to the number of days left in the year.
Yeah, that's true. Alrighty. Thank you for listening to our rambles. Have a wonderful week, everyone. I think that's it.
That's it.
Bye, everyone. Thanks for listening.